Hello.
Hi,
Hi,
how are
how are
you?
you?
I'm doing well. How's it doing with you?
Doing phenomenal. It's good to
Good.
finally be with you here.
Yeah, we're happy to see you.
It's
Thanks
okay.
for willing to do this, you two.
Thank you. Yeah. We were glad to be able to do it. Hold
Of
on,
course. Just
getting
being flexible like I've always have been with everybody else.
yeah, that's nice. Yeah, and you're tenacious. So I like that because you're
Yes.
like, come on, Jessica, let's get this scheduled.
Yeah, of course. But
Yeah.
there are two things I'd like to tell you, but number one, seeing you two reminded me of 2 years ago when I met a couple like you who are voice actors since 2002.
Wow. Who's that?
Oh, let me guess.
Lex
Uh
and Sandy.
Lexan, no, that's way longer than 2002. And it's not Richard and Ellen because they've been longer. Could it be KG?
No, the names of these people are Christopher Corey Smith and Cindy
Oh,
Robinson.
Cindy Robinson,
Yes. Who are
yes.
now married.
Yep. They've been my biggest followers ever since I've interviewed them, and I've been making a lot of videos for them for almost 3 years. I even do the same for you two as well.
Oh
Yes,
my
My
gosh.
you In my YouTube channel, Seba's Voiceover World, where it
What?
involves like characters and voice actors of each shows in anime, and I included you two in it as a way for you to be recognized.
I love that.
beautiful. I
Thank
love
you,
what you do.
Sebastian. Yeah, you do a great job. And we love Cindy and Chris. We just followed their whole journey through Ireland.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a good sign to see from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of what I said about anime, but I've been getting to know so much about you since through Sailor Moon, through Naruto and others. And oh, or even better, Miraculous Ladybug.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And since that, I've been getting to know so much about you two. To be honest, I never knew what anime was back then, but by the time I discovered the show, One Punch Man, it made me realize what anime truly is. And because of that show, I'm beginning to know about all the voice actors and even discovered everyone, including you two.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
What did you watch
Yeah.
before you discovered anime? What were some of your favorites?
Oh, that's an easy question to tell you, but a certain someone once said it to me. But to answer your question, is Dragon Ball Z and Naruto.
Oh,
Wow.
I know somebody in Naruto.
That's
Of course, I even got to meet some of them actually.
Oh,
great.
that's great.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've got many questions I've been wanting to ask you.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Fire away.
Tell me, how is it like being a voice actor in many animated shows and projects as well?
Great question. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's fun, especially when we get to connect with people out there in the world at conventions, events. That's when it's really fun because you see what an impact your work has on them. Sometimes we forget what we do. We get to go to work and we have fun being voice actors. But when you really meet the people like you who love the end result that we've been a part of the collaboration on, it makes it all worth the while. And it's interesting to see what people love too, because they're fans for everything, including things we did years ago that we forgot about.
Yeah, my sentiment exactly. I love going to the cons because that's where you really see your biggest fans as Grant said and because you're isolated in these little booths and you don't know that the work that you're doing expands further than the booth. And it really does. And when you get to meet the fans at cons one on one, it's kind of awesome to see like, wow, your character helped me, or you did something, or they usually know way more about the show than we do. But it's a great way to learn how it's affecting other people too.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
a very
Yeah.
interesting thing to hear from you, which leads me to the most important question. But how did you two get into voice acting? And what is it that is the best decision that you made so far that exceeded into your voice acting career? For what purpose?
You better say it's when you married me, right?
Yeah. She gave me my first job. She was directing a series called Little Snow Fairy Sugar, and I got to be the watchtower keeper and a teacher and some other dude selling apples or something in the village. So that was my first step into doing this anime world.
Yeah, I was directing it. And so it was really fun. I lost track of what the question was, but how did we get into it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So into anime in particular or voiceover?
Like
Voice.
in voiceover.
Well, I had a godfather named Hal Smith who was on an old show called The Andy Griffith Show, which is still on TV.
It's in black and
It's
white.
in black and white. Yeah, he played Otis the drunk who got locked up in jail, and so people know him on from that. And he was a voiceover guy, my dad's best friend. He was the coolest guy. And on Saturday mornings, I would go to my father's pharmacy and Hal would do all these key characters for me. In my dad's pharmacy, there was a soda fountain, which is an old cafe that had milkshakes and coffee and breakfast and stuff like that, hamburgers. And he would come every week to talk to my dad because they had this funny banter that went back and forth. And at that time, Hal was on the Flintstones. He was doing tons of voices. He was doing radio plays. He was on a bunch of different things. So he would do all these voices for me. And I was this little girl and just sit there like this.
You had live cartoons.
I had live cartoons. And I just knew like it's weird because I never wanted to do anything else with my career. That's all I ever wanted to do. I veered off to radio because I thought that was logical. I didn't know enough about the voiceover world. But when I was 15, I started taking voiceover lessons in Hollywood. And I was the youngest, which made it great because I could do kid voices. And immediately I was introduced by my voiceover teacher to some people who cast, and I got to do a few things as a kid. And now here I am in my 50s. And
some things as a kid, let's talk about
some
that.
things, yeah.
That would be the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was one of our first jobs, was
Yeah, doing
being a
kid
guest spot on
voice.
that.
Yeah. And then I just kept doing it year after year. And again, I veered off to the radio world and I loved that aspect of it, of like entertaining people, and I still would do that, if I had an opportunity to do that, to do a radio show. But it is really different. I could do a lot of voices, and I would mimic a lot of my teachers and get in a lot of trouble. But it was just easier for me to do those voices. And I went to New York and I studied journalism and radio, and then I came back and I just pursued it 100% of the time.
I see. So that's how you were able to get into the voice acting industry. From what I'm seeing so far, you doing mimicking voices
Yeah.
reminded me of myself, how I was able to do a lot of good impersonations of a lot of people, like Kirk Thornton, for example. Watch. Questioning the abilities of your own comrades? There's no art to that. Izuru Kira has not been a loyal lieutenant. He's been a source of great inspiration to me. Just having him around when picking up a guitar had me flowing me like a river.
Oh, that's amazing. I love him. That's
I,
great.
I even I even showed it to Kirk and he's like, wow, you sounded a lot like me. And I told him
Wow.
it takes a lot of practice to make myself sound like someone, and it did. That's what I
Yeah.
thought. So that's
You
the
have
honor.
a, you have a phenomenal speaking voice just in general.
Yeah.
So
And
ability
that's
to
what
mimic is a
that,
big plus.
Yeah.
that's why I myself has become a voice actor. The only thing I have to do is get myself out there. And when I get myself into more opportunities, I will finally have the chance to be part of a real project, like a video game and anime and everything. That's why I've
Yeah.
Yeah.
been working so hard to get myself out there.
Great.
And you
Yeah. And I
do, I
know
think
that.
one of the smartest things you can do is ask the people who have made a living doing this, because it's not easy to make a living doing this. And it's kind of tough now with things changing and AI showing up and other things. But
Strikes.
yeah, you're asking the people who have spent time in the trenches and really who come from acting backgrounds. I think that's sort of my story and my journey into voiceover is as a kid, I was always pretending. I was all, I would watch a cartoon, I would watch a movie, and I wanted to become that character on the screen, whether it was a superhero or the Scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz or anything, flying a spaceship and fighting bad guys. Um, so I
Sorry.
Bless
always
you.
bless you, that I wanted to be an actor, and I immediately went after high school to study acting. And we find as voice directors, which is what we're also doing now, the people who really are the most flexible and the most malleable are those who have studied acting. Like start with the acting instead of starting with the voice. So if I had any advice for anybody, it's really start doing whatever high school plays you can do, college theater, and then start studying acting, and then start studying the craft, the technical
And
side of
improv.
voiceover. Yeah, improv is
Improvisation is
brilliant.
really important because, I think one of the reasons why we've been able to like sit into some of the jobs that we've done or book some of the jobs that we've done is because we feel the character before we go into the booth, to record it. And it's like I call it stepping on the welcome mat. Like as soon as you step on the welcome mat, you are that character. But there are certain nuances that people who just go for the voice don't have. They're like, I'm going to make my voice a certain way instead of I'm going to take on the personification of the character, become that character, and then I could add certain, elements like ums and ahs and stammers and stutters and the way that we really talk. We don't talk in a way that is so linear. Does that make sense? We speak in a way that it reaches for the next thought. And I think that's one of the reasons when we add that kind of reality, that's what really books the job. But that's training.
I see. To be honest with you, that actually reminded me of a class that I have taken once with Global Voice Acting Academy.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I know. I've managed to talk with David Rosenthal and all these other coaches that I was able to do it with. They gave me that lesson and made me understand the enlightenment to be part of these things. And you
Yes.
two saying that reminds me of that. And I'm glad you say that.
Yeah, I'm glad
But
they're
Yeah,
doing that
yeah,
because they're a good group. They're a really good group, and I'm probably one of the best out there. And so that, to hear that I haven't taken any of their classes, but we do take classes. But I haven't taken I know some of those people and knew them when they started too. And I'm just glad that they're sticking to that.
yeah. And one good thing about taking from many different teachers is you learn so many things. You develop your little bag of tricks or tools, however you want to use a metaphor for it. But when I studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, there were teachers from all walks of life, and there were some people who said, "Well, if they're so great, why are they not out there working?" And some people are just brilliant at teaching, and there's something to be learned from everyone. And you can take it, try it. If it works for you, keep it. If it doesn't work for you, throw it out of the bag. But keep studying with different people who have different ways of doing things, and you'll find your own personal way with many things to draw from.
Yeah, I don't know if that phrase those who don't teach works anymore. I think that we all are hustlers. I would say that especially in this kind of freelance business that we all have to do other things. So teaching, like if you have people who are out there working, it's so good because they've been in the trenches that day and they're coming in to share their experience. I think those who haven't been doing it for a long time or left the business and come back in to teach, that's where the problem is. That's where there could be a problem, I should say. But, we teach because we're supplementing our income, especially in such a volatile time in the voiceover world right now, unfortunately, with the strikes and everything and COVID and everything just got off balance. We're coming back.
of course, it happens to everybody, even myself as well, when it comes to doing other things. So you're not the only ones who are doing with that. So
Oh,
that's an important fact to tell you.
yeah.
But anyway, about the questions about your characters, but for the two of you, what was your first ever characters you get to play as way before you got into many others?
Hmm.
Ooh.
Well,
What would you do?
I used to make movies when I was a kid. I look back in my past and I realized I spent a lot of time playing on my own. I was born with this incredible imagination, which I think is what we share too. Jessica has an amazing imagination too. But that's where a lot of our work is born, and these characters that we create comes from this imagination.
Hmm.
But I spent a lot of time in my childhood in that imagination pretending. And it turned into, well, this is what there's some kind of expression, like creative expression that comes from this. So I continued to do the acting. But while I was a kid, before I was also making movies. So I had many different actors that I was directing who were my action figures, who were my stuffed animals or whatever I would play with. Those were my actors that I could kind of direct in these stories. And so it started out, I think, in my own movies. I played some Freddy Krueger in movies. I built a whole glove with real copper piping and knives and started making Freddy Krueger costume. That was probably the first character that I played. Then I went on to do high school stuff. And then after college, it was a big time for film. There was movies being made. There was film festivals for everything. There was Sundance, No Dance, Can't Dance, and Try to Dance, and
Yeah.
all these film festivals. So there was a lot of work where I could learn as an actor and play different characters.
I see. Because all I know is that, if I'm not mistaken, for you, Grant, I believe from what I saw on Behind the Voice Actors website, it seems that Gemna Wars was your first ever project,
Oh,
which I see so far. Am I correct on that?
yeah, we started working with a man named Ruben Arvizu, who was one of the top directors for anime back when it was first starting out here in LA. And Jessica introduced me to him. She had been working with him for a while. Fantastic guy. He actually was friends with the Cousteaus, who do the world expeditions and the sea expeditions. So he's done a lot for the world too, and the environment. But he was our first director and played all kinds of roles, and then started directing and casting for him. So that was fun.
Nice.
I remember that being some kind of like monkey captain or something like that.
I don't think I started with Ruben. I think I started way before Ruben, like 1980 something, six maybe. I think I was still in high school. I was still in college.
Yeah.
So yeah, because anytime I could, I would come down and study with a guy named Tom Clay. So that was like during my holiday breaks and my break, because I was up at UC Santa Barbara for college, and I would come down and I would study any opportunity I could one on one. But I think I started on Akira for anime.
Not bad.
Not bad, not bad. And I remember doing it. Oh, I was so young. I was so young, and I was so, I was determined. And I remember shaking going into there because I used to shake, like be really nervous about it. But I mean, in terms of like where I started, and you started internally playing with your stuffed animals, I started mimicking and mocking. I shouldn't say mocking. It's not a nice thing, especially in our cancel culture. But any teacher I could land the voice of, I would sit in their seat before they'd walk into the room and pretend like I was that teacher. And I would just mimic my parents' friends. I would be able to look at them and study them and then all of a sudden do their voices. And I started in a high chair when I was like two. Can't, when my parents had a friend over who had a pipe in his mouth, and he couldn't understand. He was from England and you couldn't understand a word he was saying. So I sat there and I remember putting a fork in my mouth and going, and my parents looking at me, and I would get in a lot of trouble. And then I would mimic a member of our family who was from the South. It was just, uh, and I would get in more trouble, but it was funny. It was fun.
I
I
see.
still do it, by the way. I still do it.
Yes.
I'll even mimic the pigeons sitting at a fountain when in Italy. We'll have full conversations between two pigeons.
I see. And that's super funny what you said actually about you mimicking stuff. And what you said about your first project of Akira, I'm just trying to make sure so that just in case for the two of you, in case if I ever do a voice showcase of for the two of you, I'll make sure to represent it in chronological order, just like how I did it for my friend Kevin T. Collins, and not just him, but for Tony Todd, Billy
Wow,
Kometz, and everybody else that I've done for 3 years
amazing.
in my
That's
YouTube channel. You check it out, and you're gonna love
oh,
everything
we
that's
have.
coming
Yeah,
We
we've
soon.
have
seen
checked
some
it
of them.
out.
You do
Yeah,
a
and we
great
do love it. You
job.
do a great job.
I
And
like the logo in the back too. I see
and
that.
and I even made a video for you, Grant, the other day of Fire Emblem. Which,
Oh,
Ooh,
speaking of that, the question
yes.
I'm about to ask you for the two of you is, what's so awesome when being part of Fire Emblem as Sigurd and Pain and Carnelia and Cleve at once for you
Yeah.
two?
uh-huh. Go ahead.
That's right. I love that character because it's very close to me. It's similar to the Warrior of Light from Dissidia as well, where he's just one of these true heroes who's, trying to keep the good in the world. And I think that's the closest to me as possible. So when that kept coming back, it was fun. I was actually doing a lot of those remote because we weren't still open the studios here in Los Angeles. So I was working a lot of remote, but I remember recording those going, wow, this is a great character. I really like what he stands for, and it's an honor to play him. That's
Yeah.
a popular one too, so I'm glad when it comes back around.
And as
Yeah.
for me, that's Pane Pain, however you want to say it, I accept it all. And I will sign whatever pictures with whatever way you want me to write it too. But
Of course.
yeah, of course. But I love that character. I love Cornelia also, but I love that character because she embodies, I always get to do the characters that are powerful. And my voice is lower and it's deeper, and it's woman power, right? So nobody's really feeble, and so I appreciate that, because a lot of the anime voices are so little and so young, and all these little kind of voices. Well, I don't get cast on those because they're going to those people who can do those voices and sound like that naturally. I can do incidentals when you bring me in, and I can throw in a schoolgirl if we're having to do that, but doing those strong characters, those really represent strength, and I love that.
I see. So that's what I like about being those characters. Because Fire Emblem has been going on for almost a few years since
Yeah,
2012. And
yeah.
Wendy Lee and Patrick Seitz bringing you into those is just a very good choice there. And they did a good job directing you two together in this. And that's why I came to thought that you deserve a lot of recognition for all
Oh,
that kind of work.
Oh
oh.
yeah,
Well, you're talking about two of our
yeah.
favorite
Our
directors,
favorite actors.
honestly. Uh,
Wendy is great because she's an actor's director, so she
she knows
really
how to
she
get
comes in
in.
from an actor standpoint and really directs you with that in mind.
Right?
Patrick is funny.
Patrick's funnier. Patrick's the funniest director,
He'll be
but
like, okay,
efficient.
you're going into this dark room and you realize there's 18 skeletons
And
and you're
you're
boned.
boned.
Patrick Seitz.
Right.
And I got to meet with Wendy like 1 year ago in my interview, and she's a
Wow.
very awesome person. She even got to do a lot of voices for me, and I
Yeah.
actually laughed at
Yeah,
that,
Yeah.
honestly.
We
And
just
yeah,
work
she's
with
got a good heart.
we actually love Wendy so much that we bring her in on films because she's a great actress, So we do a lot of films where we're doing the background voices, Walla and looping, and we brought Wendy into our one of our last projects to work
I
with us.
I see.
And it's
So
fun to direct her.
that's a good sign to see from you two, and that's the most awesome thing I've ever hear from you.
Yeah.
But anyway, for the two of you here, but how is it like being part of the Fate series as both Lancer and Francis Drake?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite roles ever, to be honest with you. Again, there's another one who's all about honor and he's all about upholding the knights. Exactly. He's got that beautiful staff.
Mhm.
Love doing the scene where his time comes up. No spoilers here. But and I love reading what the comments are. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, I love this performance better than the original." I'm like, "Wow, all right." I love it when you can have a nice scene of absolute drama.
Who directed you on that? Was it Tony?
Yeah,
Tony
which was interesting
Oliver.
because Tony had played Lancer previously, correct? So
You
I'm
are correct.
Yeah,
stepping on his role. Tony's been one of our favorite directors as
as
well.
well. Yeah.
He directed us in what is it called? I can't think of it. Hunter
Hunter
X
X.
Hunter.
Hun-
And
You are correct.
yeah, I had this scene where I played Nob, and he has this whole breakdown scene where this whole ugh, overwhelms him, and he just let me go. We watched it one time, we previewed it, and then he said, "Why don't we just take this in one take?" Because it was sort of the head voice where I wasn't having to worry so much about sync, and we just went for it, and it. Like that was another one where people were writing, I like this better. Oh my gosh, I felt so, down in the dumps when I watched this. It had such an impact on me emotionally. So those are the ones that I thrive on. Like I'm naturally a very funny person, and I think comedy comes very easy for me. But because I didn't have a lot of expression from, dramatic expression growing up, I think I discovered that that was the one that makes me feel the best is when I have a chance to do a nice, meaty, dramatic scene or death scene or, whatever. It just lets something out of me that feels good.
Yeah, and
Indeed.
Tony's great at that because, with the Tony will also work you into the way he hears it. So he'll work you. That's not a session you come out going, "Oh, that was a breeze." You come out tired usually from working. And that's not dissing Tony in any respect. It's respectfully saying that he is an actor's actor and he knows how to get you to the point that he needs you and he needs to hear it. So with Frances Drake, she's so stoic. She stands at the end and she jumps into the air and she has these fighting scenes. And I remember coming out of that our last session being, woo! And that's what you want when you come out of a session. Like you want to have been worked.
Yeah,
Yes,
because we don't
exactly.
we don't phone it in. Like it's not just acting it out, just performing it. We really get into it. So if it's a deep scene and we're frightened, we're going to be like creating that fear within our body. If we're fighting, we're putting out that energy that it takes to give and take damage.
You should tell that story about when we were at the con and we were going
Yeah.
down the table.
Yeah, we were at a convention and there was some panelists with us, and somebody asked them,
They were newer.
yeah.
And then at the end of this table were the OGs, the old guys,
Totally.
right? And all of us. And so somebody asked from the audience.
Yeah, I wanted to ask all of us, how do you prepare for video games? What did you do to, be ready to act in video games? And the comment that came out before us was, "Oh, well, I just watched the old games, the ones I grew up playing. So I know what it sounds like when somebody gets shot and what it sounds like when somebody's fighting or doing a special move."
So just watch those shows. That was their advice. Just
Right.
watch those shows.
Instead of taking acting lessons, which they may have, I don't know, but boiling down to the fact that what they were listening to was what we did 10 years ago, which is the result of us having studied our craft
More than 10 years ago.
and really worked on acting so that we're creating something that is organic and authentic and real, as opposed to just, that's where the mimicking is good in order to be able to create characters. But if you're just mimicking something, you're not really going in to create that organically.
Stepping into the booth, being the character, like I said on the welcome mat. So our response was, well, you guys were watching us. And
That,
that's how you learned how to do it. But we trained. And so we don't give that up. And here's the thing about that, Sebastian, is that as directors, we know when an actor's sort of good, semi good, really good, and when they can step into character. They make our lives that much easier. If they don't have the training and they've just been mimicking the guys that came before them with no acting training, it is so hard to pull out the character from them. We have to work them double time.
I
yeah,
see.
it could just be very nuances, like little things. I was directing a series called Grim Variations for Netflix, and there's very subtle little nuances that need to be conveyed by the characters, but in the time they need to be sort of revealed to the viewer. So it's about being able to draw out those performances from the actors without giving away the mystery that still will be revealed further down in the story. but and sometimes it's challenging to try to let them know, okay, you're giving too much, or I need a little bit more of like discomfort on this line because it will be revealed to the audience later on. So, and you can see it in the actors when they show up in the booth. One thing that we teach is, get into the character before you're at the mic and plant yourself, get into whatever physicality that character is. If it's a beast and he's kind of like this, they'll adjust the microphone for you if you're going to be like this through your whole session. If you're big and powerful, then plant your feet and take that strength.
You can tell when people are kind of like what we are right now, like sitting at our desk with a microphone, and you can really hear it. You can hear it. It sounds like, we call it vanilla.
I see. That's a
Yeah.
very interesting thing I'm beginning to learn from you. And from what you're saying, it reminds me of something that David Rosenthal once told me. And thanks to you guys saying this, I'm beginning to understand what it means to just take my death into a character and just make it just look like I'm in a real scene or something. Like
Yes.
picturing in your head, for example. So that's something I want to tell you. But
Yeah.
anyway, we have 9 minutes left, so I'll just say this one question for the two of you, and I'll ask one last one to make it quick.
Okay.
But for you, Grant,
Yeah.
how is it like about playing Izuru Kira in Bleach?
It was funny when I first auditioned for this show because I remember going up and seeing the name on the board, Bleach. I'm like, this show's going to go absolutely nowhere. What is Bleach? Did somebody's hair got bleached? Or I have no idea.
Haha.
10, 11 years later, even more so. I think it's been about 15 years because now there's games coming back. Um, we're still playing this character. And yeah, that was sort of one of my first leads in a series, and not a lead, but I mean like one of our first principal roles. So that was fun. And it's just kind of it's one of those jobs that just keeps coming back throughout the years. And then with the games too, we just finished one game that is like, I don't know, 30,000 lines of dialogue they had to record, which
Wow.
goes back and looks at a lot of old stuff too. Some of the old scenes we got to relive, which was interesting because I already knew some of them.
I see. So that's what's it like about being that character. Because all I know is that it's been going on for years. I've got to meet some of the actors of the show. Plus, Thousand Year Blood War dubbing is happening right now. And
Yeah.
that if you ever come back to Thousand Year Blood War, which you got yourself to Rebirth of Souls as a character, you know what line I wanted you to say, Grant?
Yeah.
The line I want you to say is this. Me? I am a dead man who is here to take your life, Quincy.
Me, I am the.
I'm a dead man.
That's right. Take
I'm a
two.
I'm a dead man.
I'm a dead man that's come to take your life, Quincy. Raise your head, Wabisque!
Now that right here will eventually kill it for your character and your performance as well. So
Oh,
as
yeah.
as for you, Jessica, how is it like about playing pets in Sailor Moon?
Oh yeah, Crystal Moon. It was so funny, Sebastian, because I didn't, I thought that it was just going to be this little tiny thing, and I didn't realize it had a following. And we were at a con, and somebody's like, "Oh my gosh, we just learned that you played pets. Can we talk about it?" I'm like, "It's out. You can talk about it." And I walked into a room through a backstage. Didn't have any plan at this convention. It was like a Sailor Moon panel. And I walked in, they're like, "We've got pets." And we walked out, and the lights came on to us, and how many people
like
were
2,000
people in the
This
room.
room
Yeah.
standing.
Yeah. And I again, here's another character where I got to be the one of the pivotal sisters, probably the lead of the tough women. So it's great because she is me and I am pets. And so that's not a huge stretch for me. Like I can be really regal. Like you're not going to get one of the little characters to do the regal stuff, right? You're going to get, I sound like Sandy Fox. You're going to get somebody who is deep and rooted. And I loved playing her. I wish Crystal Moon came back. I had so much fun on that.
Yeah.
My
Hey,
favorite.
Yeah.
you playing that character is a very awesome thing, especially when Sailor Moon has been going on for almost a few years. Plus, recently on Netflix, they recently brought in Sailor Moon Cosmos, which was the very last thing that they've done. And the surprise part is that Kari Walgren made her first ever debut in that series. Now it's like, my God, it's
Yeah.
you! No way, Kari Walgren, you're
Yeah.
Chaos, the final villain? My
Yeah.
God. I know. And I like to see your pet's voice, if you please, so that I can just, feel a bit entertained.
Oh, she's definitely me. This is the way that she spoke. She
Oh,
just was regal. I have a question for you. Were you at a convention that we were at?
honestly, no, but I've been through a lot of conventions since 2022, and I've been going through a lot of them actually. Plus, the last one I did is where I got to meet everybody, including Colleen O'Shaughnessy, Kirk Thornton, and most importantly, my biggest fan of my YouTube channel, Zeno Robinson,
Oh,
who,
Zeno.
because
Zeno's
how
cool.
how Zeno and I actually met was not in line, but by destiny itself. He bumped into me in line, and I was like,
Oh
"Oh,
no.
sorry about that." And I was like, "No, it was
That's
my fault," he said. And I was like,
that makes sense.
"Wait, Zeno?" And by the time he was
Yeah.
done talking to these people, he came back to me and
All
introducing
right.
myself. Oh, he was like a fanboy. He's been wanting to meet me for a
Oh,
long time, and
that's
that
Yeah.
cool.
and
That's
but
so
it
sweet.
and that's why he even asked me for a picture with him because of him being a fan of mine.
There you
Yeah, you've
go.
done a
You've
great
done a great
job
job.
creating your voiceover
Of
world.
course.
We love it. Yeah, that's cool. The reason why I asked that is because when I was playing pets, a guy walked up to me and he put
Emerald,
an
right?
emerald in my hand with diamonds around it that I still have. It is real, and he walked away. And I've never been able, and it's pets, her amulet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Well, that's a very good sign to hear from you two.
Yeah,
But
I take jewelry, I take anything.
Yeah,
So,
totally,
yeah, of
totally.
course.
entertainment.
Well, you two, it's such an honor to finally have you right here, and I'm glad I get to meet with the two of you, and that hopefully one day, when I do become a professional, working with you two will be the right choice to help me get myself out there, not just to see myself, but to connect with you two and your
Oh,
sons as well, since you said yourself that one of your sons is autistic, and that
yes.
I
Yes.
wanted
So,
a chance to get to know you two very well in person, along
yeah.
with your sons.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'd
he's
love
kind
to
of a
talk to
fan
you.
of yours too, as well. So, you know, just being
Yeah.
able to stand out in the forefront of whatever world that he's connected to and talk about. He's a huge gamer, so he's very social. So, but he loves to see people be very successful,
Yeah.
and
It's
you are an
inspiration.
inspiration for him.
100%.
Thank you. I was
Yeah.
hoping for you to say that.
Yeah,
There are
he
two
Thank you
things
for what.
before we do this, but number one, if you ever see your sons, tell them I said hello, and that hopefully in the near future, when I do come to California, I'll be looking forward to meet with them in person, along with you when the time comes.
Oh, thank
And
Yes,
you.
indeed.
We'll
and
come to
number,
Florida too. We're just back on the con circuit. We're
I
trying to
see,
get into more cons right now. So,
I
you know,
see.
yeah.
And one more thing,
Yes.
but my last thing to you is that I wanted you guys to answer it quick, but when you look back, is there anything you would have done differently when starting your voice acting career?
Mm.
Like, make it quick so that we can end the time.
Yes.
Okay. I think I wouldn't have gone the radio route. I wish I had just stuck to my guns and stayed in. I loved moving to New York for 10 years, and I was happy to be on the radio, but I wish I had stayed because I think I missed a big chunk of becoming like one of the top animation people at that time.
I see.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to hear from you. Well, you two, I hope you do something awesome today, and I'll look forward to working with you in the industry when the time comes.
Well,
Indeed.
it's going to come sooner than
Yeah.
later.
Oh,
Thank you.
trust me, it's going to become reality eventually. And I
Oh, it,
and I promise you that. Count on it.
It
oh, I
already
can't wait to work
is.
with you. I really can't. It will be our honor.
Of course.
Thank you.
Well, you
Thank you
two,
for doing this.
do something awesome today, and I'll be meeting you in the near future.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sebastian.
Sebastian.
Appreciate you very much. Stay in touch. I like connecting with you.
Of course. And
Okay.
you too, and do the right thing.
We will.
We
We
will.
promise. Thank
Of
you.
course.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.